with CC Worldwide Voices, and a very special welcome to our guest this evening, Dan Willis. Well, Dan's background is primarily in electronics and communications. He's always felt that the laws that govern those sciences have a profound basis that goes far beyond that which scientists can currently measure. An unusual experience in Danton's life triggered his interest in sacred geometry and led him to seek out the one person on the planet who was scientifically linking consciousness with geometrical forms as exemplified in crystals. And that individual was Dr. Marcel Vogel. In 1983, Dr. Vogel asked Dan to join him as a research associate. So this evening, Dan will share his insights into the fascinating world of consciousness and crystal technology. Before I hand over to Dan, though, I also wanted to mention that he has a wide range of experiences which he can talk about. And his website, he has two websites, which Debbie and Bev will put in the chat. But his one website has a lot of information on crystals. His other website has just a plethora of interesting information. It includes things like technology suppression, enemies of the people, secret societies, big pharma timelines, and so much more. So we've invited Dan to really touch on whatever topics are appropriate, and a lot of those topics seem to blend together. So again, Dan, thank you for being with us this evening, and I'll hand over to you.
Well, greetings, everyone. Yeah, it's an honor to join all of you inquisitive minds, and they're interested in consciousness and connecting. Yeah, it's interesting how life, gives one experience after another, and one thing leads to another. Sometimes I speak of my military experience with a top secret military clearance, and I testified in Washington back in 2001, revealing the extraterrestrial presence and illegal secret government operations, along with we're backed by 500 witnesses. So I've been interested in this subject and wondering why we haven't had disclosure for a long time, and this led the subject of crystals and the technology of crystals that are far beyond what we know on this planet so far. Started out in 1977 for me. I had a Kundalini opening experience, and I had an interaction with a being. So I have some slides. I'm going to share some of these. Let's see. Go here to share screen. Okay. This being with very loving eyes and an incredible energy, I had like millions of volts going through my hands and feet, was projecting a sphere in space and projected geometry that was related to the structure of the matrix in relationship to consciousness. This was in 1977. I went on a show with a friend of mine. Her name's Elena Danan. She's a contactee who, when she was 9 years old, had an implant put into her so that she was they had to repurpose it, and so it became a communication device with her contact, Thor Hanaredion, part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. It's actual physical communications. And initially, she brought me on the show to talk about disclosure and the history of disclosure, something I've talked a lot about. And so she identified this type of being in what's called an emether. This is from her book, A Gift from the Stars. She details 110 different extraterrestrial species, which she actually saw into the Federation database through the implant that she has. I found out that this was actually the emether part of a science transfer program to our planet. And the being was actually preparing me to give me information in the future that I would share with the people of our planet about this, about the sciences. This experience led me to ask the question, what is the geometrical nature of the matrix of reality and interface with consciousness and its relationship with quartz crystals? It appeared that, quartz crystals held a key to understanding the structure of this matrix. And so in the early 1980s, I sought out Dr. Marcel Vogel, who was IBM's senior scientist, who was planning on retiring and opening up a laboratory to study crystals. This came out of a dream that he had. He was working originally with man-plant communications, and his experience with a crystal having a profound effect on a colleague at IBM, he wanted to make it cohere the energies of mind more effectively. So he had this dream, and he saw this dipyramidal form like the tree of life. And so he started cutting the crystals in this form. I went to the crystal mines and delivered a huge batch of crystals, which he cut for 24 medical doctors in the San Francisco Bay Area, teaching them with the techniques that he used. He started out with a four-sided crystal and 6, 8 on, what the idea was to increase the vortex spin with more facets. But he didn't realize that when he didn't cut it in respect to the lattice, that there was a very special effect that he had no idea about, and he would have loved to have known. Now, in this how the show started like over 2 years ago, Elena's contact, Thor Hanaredion, who's a high commander in the Galactic Federation of Worlds, his younger brother was going to a university in the Pleiades, learning how to terraform planets. And he has an advanced understanding of the science of crystals. And Elena offered to be able to have an exchange with him on the science of crystals. And so I was quite excited about this opportunity of, being able to talk to a scientist whose civilization is thousands of years ahead of ours. And so in April 2022, a first communication exchange has started. We've been having ongoing, as of today, continual communications. There's 200 and some pages of question and answer on the science of crystals. And we've learned quite a bit from the scientist, Jen Hanaredion. I learned once I was a scientist in Atlantis. He has ability to look at past lives and saw that I was a scientist in the capital city of Atla, and my specialty was holographic medical science. Anyway, this gets into a rather involved discussion about the structure of the multiverse that we're in, and how these multiple spheres that are in this pattern like the flower of life. It's not exactly perfectly spheres, but this is like the blueprint in which all things come into form. Each one of these spheres is like we're in one of these dimensional spheres, and there's an infinite number of them, and each of them have different number of densities. And that in this particular density that universe that we're in, source, which they call as at the 13th level, and it precipitates into the lower densities, which can be seen here on the outer hub. The higher densities form or precipitate into the lower densities of matter. The lower densities do not affect or form into the higher densities. And existing in between and outside this infinite dimensional sphere is a nonlinear space of the multiverse of the different densities, space, and time exists what's called the void. This is a simulation of, as best we can reproduce, of what Alanus actually saw as a multiverse. It's witnessed on a ship. The crystal allows you to, well, let's see. I don't really have this organized, so I'm just going to jump through some of the concepts. Tetrahedral fractal geometry is one of, I'm going to go through this really rapidly, so hang on to your seats. Tetrahedral fractal geometry is the main frequency keys they use to build worlds, and this is the secret of the universe. And that quartz crystal is the purest material in the universe. It's based on the core fractal formula as water, and both are interdimensional bridges. And thought is geometric. When we think, we project patterns of geometric patterns that imprint onto the holographic matrix of reality. And breath. Dr. Marcel Vogel found that when he pulsed his breath, when he was doing man-plant communication, it was the most effective. And so it's like a Kundalini yoga breath of fire, you go like that. It imprints into the matrix the strongest. And that love is key in this, and that at the highest density level, it's connected more with perfection and more with love. As the being evolves through the different levels of densities, they evolve through love because it connects you into the higher densities, and it's like a secure channel, like Jen Han was saying, that it prevents dissonance and allows it to transcend into the higher densities. Water, love, quartz, they all built on the same core fractal formula. And, when you look at the ice core samples that they took, you can see that all of the major crystallographic forms can be formed in water, showing that water is universally resonant. And the reason why only love can resonate into the higher densities, Jen Han says, quote, dissonance cannot attune with an ordered state of geometrical resonance. And you can see Dr. Masaru Emoto's crystallization, that you have a dissonant thought of anger or jealousy, whatever. It doesn't take form because of the dissonance. It dissipates. When we get into the med beds, how the key idea here is that the universe tends to perfection. So when you overlay a more optimized pattern over a dissonant pattern, the universe will tend to morph it into the more perfect pattern. And this is basically how the med beds can restructure. Okay, this is new information I just got. So this gets into some pretty interesting things about how the crystal has not only the lattice of space, but the lattice of time. And a little bit too much to go into this for right now. Anyway, one of the projects I worked on with Dr. Marcel Vogel was a holographic camera that could tune forwards and backwards into time. Although this is primitive in comparison to the extraterrestrial medbeds, it nevertheless proved that the holographic field has this vector of time. And in fact, this device that I worked on was patented by the European Patent Office in Paris, France in 1955. My job was to allow the display of the holographic pattern onto a real-time graphic display rather than on a photographic plate. And so that was the project. Here you can see a woman that was 50 miles away using a drop of blood, because we're fractal, right? So the drop of blood has a fractal representation that they tuned into the fetus and was able to move the fetus forward and backwards in time and photograph it. He's talking about Vogel cut crystals and the importance of cutting the crystal in alignment with the lattice structure, become a surgical tool to operate in the fabric of space-time. And so what I learned was that how the crystals that are formed on the planet Era, not only, this is something Marcel didn't know, but when you cut it in alignment with the lattice structure, not only the C-axis, which he was aware of, but also the hexagonal core axis, and that the angles of 51.843, the same as the Great Pyramid in Egypt, and the 60-degree angle were the terminations. And how that works is the 51.843 degree, same as the Great Pyramid. It acts as a transponder in the matrix. And this is how they're able to transpond the etheric energy into the crystal. That's kind of like the receiving, receptive end. And the sending end, emitting end, is the 60-degree angle, because the tetrahedral fractal geometry is tetrahedral. And if you look at a tetrahedron, all angles are 60 degrees. And this is it writes into the tetrahedral lattice structure of the holographic matrix. Interesting, the pyramidion on top of the obelisk is also set at 60 degrees. Jenhan said that the ratio of the hexagonal, pentagonal, multi-layered blueprint applied to a living organism will produce cellular evolution, plants, humans, stars, so far. The ratio is key to life and also represented in the blueprint, as the flower of life. Those who understand the secret geometry of the flower of life can create universes and life forms to populate them. And here you can see in the flower of life geometry exists the hexagonal, the pentagonal, the 51.843 degree angle, the 60-degree angle, all embedded within the matrix that is called the flower of life. It's interesting that our DNA is also made up of hexagons and pentagons. These two, this relationship, where this is like the receiving end, the transponding end, it creates a dual torsion field that meets with the dual torsion field in a counter-rotational method that creates the eye of the crystal. These two geometries, which is, the 60 degrees related to hexagonal, and the 51.843 is related to golden mean geometries. The eye of the crystal. Now, how this how this came about, they have there's actually such a thing as a prime directive, where they're not supposed to interfere with evolving civilizations. And there are some things that are forbidden not to share with us. I just happened to ask the right question. This information was previously forbidden by the Prime Directive. Thorhan was able to obtain authorization from the Galactic Federation of Worlds based on this question I asked. Jenhan shared, he said, well, it works by finding the phase conjugation node inside the crystal by projecting inwards the geometrical shapes of the two opposite points like a mirror. There is a vortex singularity of the crystal. Focus your thought and energy just there, and you may project your consciousness to anywhere you wish in this universe and other universes, to other densities, other dimensions. Anything is accessible in space, dimension, and time. This is great power, Elena. Elena is relaying this from me, to Junhan. It is very important information. I'm honored to be allowed to share this with you. This is the eye of the crystal being simulated. There's a dual torsion field that's going one direction, and the other one's going the opposite direction. They're coming together at this phase conjunction node, what's called the eye of the crystal, which is actually a vortex singularity. The ratio of these two angles of inclination of the terminations. Now, if they were both the same, they would cancel each other out. And Junhan explains it that the two dynamics counter-rotate and meet at the vortex singularity. Because the counter-rotating dynamics, the vortex is opened by phase conjugation of the two frequencies. At the same frequency rate, the dynamics are canceled. You need a difference in speed rate in order to create a dynamic for experience to tend toward perfection. And since nothing in the universe ever reaches the absolute point of perfection, the universe is alive through the dynamics of evolution. And this is how they convert etheric energy into physical reality. Now, this is very advanced technology I'm sharing with you. The 51.843 angle geometry transpons etheric energy, and the 60-degree angle imprints it into the holographic matrix of the universe. This is a great network. This is how we implement etheric energy into physical reality, and how the liminal geometric point of transfluxation, that's quite a mouthful, huh? Allows the intention of consciousness to imprint into the imprint a geometric thought pattern. And here you can see a Kirlian photograph where is actually captured what it looks like, the double coiled torsion field formed by the pyramidion. I showed this image to Junhan, and he said, quote, "A pyramidion creates a frill vortex." Frill, by the way, is like the life force energy of the universe. Frill is the etheric energy. The vortex you depict in this visual is the etheric energy harvested by the pyramidion. Pyramidion, it just means the shape of the pyramid. The dynamic influx of this harvested energy, the mathematical ratio of the pyramidion, generates a double-coiled torsion field. The two dynamics twirling in opposite directions create a phase conjugation tension that creates a singularity in the hologram and a convergence of infinite power. So Jen had told me that he said, "I was told the mission you have chosen consists in teaching the Terrans, us Earthlings, how to change their reality. You always knew this. Teach them how to activate the vortex and how to modify the holographic matrix." So this is how you open the vortex. It has to do with piezoelectric pressure, which can be either electronic or physical. To activate and open the vortex eye, the crystal, it needs to be piezoelectrically stimulated. This creates a dynamic reaction between the two polarities of the charge triads of the lattice structure and creates an exponential reaction that triggers the singularity portal. You can see the lattice structure of quartz is like this hexagonal that's made up of these positive and negative charge triads. And when there's physical or electronic pressure, it offsets it and creates this charge imbalance. Piezoelectric pressure or electronic pulse is applied to both sides of the vortex singularity. The area of the vortex is determined by, you look at the angles of inclination, and where they meet is the area of where this discoidal area of this vortex eye is forming. And the crystal can have inclusions, but it needs to be clear in this particular area. Now, using this type of crystal, you can measure this. I put a little piece of tape, so I can know where to squeeze, with my fingers. Elaine and I originally set up our crystals with signal generators pulsing at 20 hertz to keep the vortex continuously open rather than just temporarily by squeezing. These are lame methods that we used in the beginning. I was using plumbing parts, and Elena was using a candle holder. Since then, we've developed a better system of these discs that sandwich the crystal, and pure silver electrodes are placed across the eye. This is what we call a reality modulator. In order to effectively work with this type of technology, you need to get into like a meditative state and get into what's called gamma brainwaves. Gamma brainwaves open up vortices in the person's mind that anything becomes possible. So this is kind of a prerequisite for doing this kind of consciousness interface. The pineal gland is how the vortex, the crystals in the pineal gland is calcium carbonate, which is organically produced in the tissues of the human body. These microcrystals generate an electromagnetic field at the center of which is an interdimensional vortex for consciousness. This interdimensional vortex is the consciousness that our soul connects with, that animates our bodies, and also is what connects into the singularity vortex within the crystal. And this singularity vortex goes into what is called the void, which is existing outside of the multiverse, dimensional spheres, densities, space, and time. It's kind of long, but basically it's saying that the void, when you imprint into the void, since there is no space or time, it lasts forever. And so when you imprint something there, it doesn't diminish in time. If you were to imprint something normally into the holographic matrix, it will diminish with time. But when using the crystal with the open singularity of the vortex, it will persist. Prepare going beforehand, get into a gamma brainwave level, and then imprint, like say you have a reality vision of a beautiful new world, or to heal yourself, and imprinting a healthier aspect within yourself. Frill, this goes into discussing what frill is. He says, frill from source is the most powerful energy you can ever imagine to harness. Of course, when the singularity of the vortex is triggered in the crystal, and when it bridges to source, frill comes from it. Frill is the energy created from gravity waves and what you name the ether. These gravity waves are also named compression waves. These waves can be created by a gravity or scalar pulse sufficiently powerful and constant. You will learn that consciousness can produce scalar waves and generate frill. I'm not talking about electrical brain waves, which are efficient too, but pure consciousness. Frill can be present everywhere in the multiverse and is efficient when activated by a pulse. And he's telling me about the technology that he shared with me is the core basic technology of how they power their starships and how they power their entire planet. He says, on my home world, we have power generators, such as from Atla, referring to my past life, which I remember next to nothing of. I wished to converse with you directly from face to face. How exhilarating it would be. He says, anyway, on Era, we do have central power plants, pyramidal power plants with a tall natural crystal in the central core. The frill harvested and collected in the top of the pyramid and resonated, or you may understand better the term teleported, to smaller devices that we name secondary generators. These transpond the frill for and towards the power web of our cities. In the countryside settings, each house can choose to have a small replica of the big pyramid generators, or we can have a generator that supplies the whole community. That is how we have organized where I'm coming from, the Udura-Ur in the Nardian Valley. This is on the planet Era in the Pleiades. We are relying upon a community generator on the hill above the valley. It supplies power to all the habitats. This is stable and greatly efficient because of the lake, the water. Frill generators are always near water. Our sister works as an attendant. She is part of the maintenance team. It is more of an occupation for her. These are simulated images of as close as possible of these beings. This is Jenhan and Thorhan's older sister. She's she looks good for 160. She's a technician on the temple generator. How they power their spacecraft with the frill is a dynamic impulse in the ether creates compression waves, which generate frill crystals in the central core. Here you can see the central core in the crystal. They store and convert this power into the red ionized mercury plasma in the dual perpendicular toroids of the ship's anti-gravity system. There's one toroid going one direction, another toroid going the other. This creates an anti-gravity effect. Elena was shown on a remote world how you can see how the big crystal here, and they're having two types of metal that are wound around the crystal. Anyway, they gave a gift. I was quite delighted to receive this information of how we can make a frill generator crystal here on our planet. I'm working with a team of scientists that are helping to reproduce some of this technology. So this is not just theory, right? And so with the authorization of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, he gave the technical construction details. Here you can see the first prototype that we made. You can see the copper and the silver coils. There's a crystal inside of this, and these there's a dual torsion field that's created inside the frill generator. The copper torsion field coil is wound clockwise, and the silver is wound counterclockwise for the etheric field. The two coils are at 90 degrees. You can see they're at 90 degrees to each other. We power them with alternating pulses at 180 degrees out of phase of each other at a 4096 hertz frequency. Here you can see it on the oscilloscope. I presented this to our planet back last year on October. Our science team, Chris Assone, our engineer, Kent Noonan, in front of 900 people, something like that, in Florida at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference, the frill generator crystal. So, from these applications, I've come up with a number of different applications. I mean, I'm downloading a lot of information right here, but these are what I've identified as applications: a frill generator crystal, a reality modulator, crystal for healing work, crystal clearing device, water clearing device, a crystal frill charger, and an exercise that I hounded for months, Jenhan, of how we can regenerate our DNA and repair it. And so he gave me that information, which I will share with all of you. Okay, the frill generator crystal that we just mentioned. By the way, we're not allowed yet to seek electrical power generation like they do on their planet, but the frill that is generated from the frill generator crystal can be used for beneficial applications on this planet. These are quotes by Jenhan regarding what the frill does and how it can be healing to us. Frill modifies matter by reorganizing the atomic bonds in what is dissonant. That is how you can say in a simpler manner, the frill can heal. Frill has no effect on the atoms, properly speaking, but on the frequency between them. Frill regenerates your cells by invigorating and strengthening the bonds between the particles that compose it. With frill-charged water, and you can charge water with this, you can drink water and bathe in it. Rinsing your hair with this water, you will notice a difference in the radiance of your hair. This water heals. It can repair disharmonics in the body. It extends youth. We can all use that, right? Plants and other biological life forms, such as humans, naturally feed a frill that is present in the surrounding ether, as you call it. Increasing frill supply has not only an energizing effect, it also heals. When there is a wound or a disease, frill level is weak. And these are some of the potential applications of this. A home unit could deliver in the local environment air to breathe that has been frill vitalized. The home unit can impregnate the frill into the house water supply for drinking or bathing. A frill spa, for example, could charge the water in a chamber for the client to immerse into for revitalizing. In agriculture, a frill unit can impregnate water irrigation lines to nourish multiple plants to grow rapidly and abundantly while eliminating the need for fertilizers and pesticides. The other item here is the reality modulator. It allows, this is reality shaping technologies that the Palladians use. It allows, through a conscious interface with an activated open vortex of the eye of the crystal, to be able to modify the holographic matrix and alter reality. There's silver electrodes across the eye here that are being pulsed. Potential applications: using your creative consciousness with loving intention, of course. Envision a desired reality to come into physical manifestation by modulating with your intention the etheric energy that is being transponded by the crystal to be impregnated into the open singularity vortex of the void, which uses the grid of the universe to change the holographic matrix of reality. Two examples. In healing oneself, you can visualize a more healthy, optimized avatar of yourself to be superimposed onto your current avatar. As the universe tends toward perfection, a healthier pattern will be supported to morph into physical reality. Remember, when it's imprinted into the void, it lasts forever. Or positively affect the planetary matrix, the morphogenic field. You know, the people that gather together to affect a positive timeline onto the planet. This could be heavy-duty equipment, you know, that could be used. Crystal healing work. This is something I, was involved in with Marcel Vogel. Expanding upon the legacy of the pioneering work of Dr. Vogel into the research and interface of consciousness with specially cut crystals, now with the greater understanding of cutting the crystal in perfect alignment with the grid of the lattice in order to access the eye, crystal healing work has the ability to restructure the holographic matrix of reality to more rapidly allow transformations to occur. Now, I shared all the techniques that Marcel taught me and shared over the years with Jen Han. And Jen Han said, "These methods I have just read are effective. I wish I've known such a great mind and vibrant being as Marcel Vogel. His legacy must perdure and be used to assist the people of Terra in the evolution of consciousness." So he liked the techniques that Marcel used, but Marcel had no idea about the vortex eye that is in the crystal. Now, 4096 is the frequency of quartz. It's frequency of water. It's also a frequency of love and light, it turns out. And then when you take a crystal and you send the sound waves of 4096, what happens is the imprints. When you have a crystal, hold a crystal, use a crystal, it has like a memory where it will store this information. And when you're using crystals, they need to be clear. They need to be clean before you use them. And using the 4096 frequency, our engineer created a device that is accurate to certain thousandths of a hertz. That's a small little audio device that can work. And you can also use your cell phone too. And if you turn off all the Wi-Fi and cellular and everything like that, there's different ways to do that. We just learned that it can also do it with water. This is something that's being currently researched. This is kind of wild. Using the vortex horizon curve of the crystal, you can pulse these frequencies in sequence, and what happens is the crystal will reach saturation. And when it reaches saturation, you want to disconnect immediately, but the crystal be full of the frill energy, and you can absorb that into your body. But there's a warning by John Han. He says there's a time mass ratio that corresponds to the saturation point. Because there is a saturation point, after this point is passed, the crystal implodes. It becomes light and transcends matter and density. So when you do this, you want to make sure that as soon as it starts what he calls singing, it starts making this sound, that you need to cut the power immediately to it. And this is that DNA exercise. I'll share it with you very briefly and very concisely. Thor Hanaridian says that this frill harvesting technique is part of their Dorm Dorhu, in other words, their Palladian yoga practice. This will assist in the regeneration and help to alleviate disease and the deterioration of our Terran envelopes, our Earth bodies. It reconnects the hydrogen links between the chromosome inter-elements. DNA can be transmuted into a stable state of auto-regeneration once you unlock the blocks that keep the strands disconnected from the morphogenic field of the universe. And this is it in very, very simple terms. Now you can use a crystal to enhance it. It's good to go into a meditative state also before you do this, but this is it in the simplest, shortest manner of words, is that visualize the influx of frill into your central heart vortex coming in, using your pulsed breath to feeding the upward toroidal flow that's circulating upward from the base of your spine up to the top of the head and then back down again, like this. Continually repeating the cycling of this toroidal energy flow as you pulse breath the frill into your heart vortex to energize this flow. In other words, you have this flow happening, and what is feeding and energizing this flow is feeding it into your heart vortex, the frill energy, and you do it like with pulse breath, visualizing the frill going into your heart vortex as it's feeding this upward toroidal flow that's going in. So that's the frill. Is another shot of John Han on board. He's currently on Mars right now, but he's going to be transferred to Altean ship. He's doing terraforming operations. And there's just a few quotes by him. Dissonance cannot attune to an ordered state geometrical resonance. When you intend love into a crystal, you activate its transcending capacity. Thought can reshape the holographic grid of reality because thoughts are complex geometrical patterns. The crystal will bridge the new pattern to the existing ones. And if the impulse is strong enough, the new pattern will force themselves onto the old, and the old will morph onto the new. I love this. The universe tends toward perfection. So that was my unintended slideshow, but I hope that was comprehensible, and I'm sure you may have a lot of questions regarding all that, and I'm working with my science team so that we can quantify these, so they don't think we're just making up this imaginary people that are these scientists that are giving us this information, and hope to deliver some beneficial technology that would help our planet. I have zero financial interest in any of this. I just want to assist in bringing this technology so that it could help people on our planet.
Thank you, Dan. That was an amazing amount of information that you just supplied. If you're willing, we can start with questions. We've had so many of them come in.
Oh, wonderful. You know, the only reason I do this is because I absolutely thrive on people asking questions. You know, people don't research or question enough, and I love it when people ask questions because it makes me dig, and if I don't have the answer, I will definitely tell you.
Great. Chris, do you want to start with a question?
Yes, absolutely. And first, I want to reiterate Angela's comment that just amazing information that you shared. And in the chat, there's just so much appreciation and thank yous for you and a lot of interest in this, Dan. So thank you. I'm going to start it with a question from someone who said they attended the GSIC last year and witnessed your unveiling of the frill crystal generator. So the question is, do you have an idea when this will be available for us on Terra to use for our healing environment and energy to generate our appliances?
Now, um, you know, I have no interest in the crystal business, but if you go to marcelvogel.org, let me just put that on the screen for everybody.
We've put it in the chat so everyone it has the link that they can click on to go to.
Like here, if you go to this website, I did the site in Marcel's honor and to acknowledge his legacy. And it gives me a place to do a brain dump of everything I learned when I worked with him. So this is the website that will give you all the information. It also has a link to, I'm working with a company that has a crystal business, and I'm so grateful, they have trained their cutters to cut the crystal exactly according to the specifications that Marcel has given. Now Vogel cut quartz crystals are not inexpensive, but they have, and you don't need a large one. You can use a small one, such as, oh, right, this is a small size one, and it will open the vortex and it's like about $170, which is really, really reasonable. Now it goes up from there. You can get a larger one, but the only difference being that you know, it has more capacity for frill, but as far as opening the vortex eye, there's absolutely no difference. So the small one is easier to handle, lighter, and you know, so there is a link on marcelvogel.org that links you to, you know, that if you're interested in that. Plus, on the menu, I have detailed all of the healing procedures and all of the technology and the communication logs, which are 200 and some pages long, of all the exchanges. So those who wish to dig deeper, it's all there available to dig into.
Thank you for that. That's a wonderful answer, giving people, you know, much more information that, you know, just freely. That's great. One person asked this question very specifically. Do you speak of quartz crystals only? Are there other crystals, and what is the effect of using different crystals? And in addition to that, someone asked, can you use something like diamonds?
Well, all crystals have their gifts and value of what they do. It's all geometry and resonates with things. But the quartz, clear quartz, is the most universal. It resonates with everything. And so it's the crystal of choice, I guess you could say, because it's the most universal. And you know, you can have you know, people can use, you know, a raw crystal, but it's not nearly as effective as as a cut crystal, especially there's Vogel crystals such as, like this one here is an 8-sided one, and it works. It's just not as effective as the new technology that has been shared. And if you really want to get wild, you can get into something like this, which is the reality modulator. But that's a little advanced. All right.
Okay.
Another question.
Thank you. So there are lots of questions here. So trying to figure out which ones to ask you, Dan. There is significant interest here. So I'm going to ask the question: does the number of crystal facets matter?
Oh, I'm sorry, my hearing is a little bad. I'm having a little difficulty with understanding.
That's quite all right. So the question is the number of the facets on the crystal. Does that matter, or how many facets are cut onto the crystal?
How many facets?
Yes.
Well, crystals, as it grows in nature, is 6-sided. It's hexagonal. Just like water, the snowflakes are 6-sided, hexagonal. And so when you cut the crystal in alignment with the natural hexagonal lattice, it's going to come out with 6 sides like this. And then the termination angles are important. The 60-degree and 51.843. Some people round it off to 52, but this is required in order to open up the vortex singularity inside the crystal, according to the information Jen has shared.
Thank you.
So we have a different kind of question. Someone wants to know, might some of the intricately patterned crop circles be formed with crystal technology?
I don't know about that. It's interesting, isn't it? The geometry that is formed, definitely there's like a higher intelligence that's forming that. I don't know I see plasma balls, going around, in videos, before the crop circle is formed. I don't know about that. I think they use a different type of technology.
Okay, thank you. So another question. It seems that we can travel etherically when in an altered state of consciousness, such as when we are in a sleep cycle. Our memory recall of these travels and our experiences seems to remain buried within. Is there a way to increase recall, particularly when connected with a cut crystal?
Possibly. I've learned from a very highly advanced being. Genhan's like thousands of years ahead of our technology. The Palladian technology is way ahead of ours. The Alteans are 20,000 years ahead of the Palladians. And Una, who is an Altean, shared with me recently, is that one frame that I bypassed, in that the crystal not only resonates throughout the lattice of space, but also the lattice of time, so that everything that ever existed resonates. Where we're talking about healing and a method of healing, and how the crystal could be used in kind of answering your question indirectly, is that it's like through a transponding. When you hold the crystal, it through quantum entanglement, it transponds to your current avatar frequency, wherever you are at. And when you do that, it also is transponding to your avatar throughout time. In other words, like when you were in your 20s or whenever your body was most optimal, since the universe has a tendency to go to perfection, there's a method to bring that resonance into your current avatar and morph it through intention. And I'm still learning on this one. So, but crystals can be used to access memory.
Interesting stuff, Dan. So somebody asked, can you use a tuning fork at 4096, hertz to clear the crystal? You had other methods, but can you use a tuning fork?
Now I can answer this very well because I bought the most expensive tuning forks I could. I got the cheap one on Amazon and I measured them and they're like 10 to 17 hertz off. If you're not exactly on the resonant frequency, it's not effective. So it's important. Now you can take your there's now the company, my engineer sells them through the company, these little tone devices, but you could just use you don't have to spend money. You could use your cell phone, turn off the cellular, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, all the radiations. And if it's a iPhone or Android, you can download these audio apps. And if you go to marcelvogel.org, I have links, and you just punch in the 4096 frequency, and then you just put it on your phone with the sound, and it takes longer, but it will clear the crystal.
She's asking if they can use breath work, breathing, to clear a crystal.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, how Marcel used to do it is you hold the crystal like this and your fingers like this, and you would put the intention of clearing and pulse your breath like that, rotate it to the next facets up. And with a six-sided, you do it like 3 times, obviously. But the problem with that is, unless your mind is absolutely clear like spring water, Jen Han says, that any type of troubled parasitic thoughts in the back of your mind get imprinted into the crystal as well. But if you have nothing else, then that's a technique Marcel used, but he was unaware that the frequency of quartz, which you can oscillate, will completely bring the crystal to zero. It will clean it completely.
Again, these are such interesting things. So someone asks about when the crystal reached saturation point, do you mean that it turns to light and it's invisible in this dimension?
No, you've gone too far at that point. It'll implode and transcend densities and turn into light. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It can actually be with a small crystal, he says not so dangerous, but a larger crystal, it can be dangerous. No, what happens is when you do the sequence of frequencies, it goes from 10 hertz up to 550 hertz. It starts this interferometry between the two. It's like a lasering effect that it starts to generate the sound, which he says it's like a singing. The crystal starts singing. You have to disconnect the power right then, or else you could have a problem.
They want to know about, can you discuss more what terraforming is?
Well, terraforming, the asteroid belt was left over because of planet Maldek was destroyed a long, long time ago, and it blew out the atmosphere of Mars, and 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 so they are, he was working with microbiological life that helps create oxygen and things like that. In other words, you want to have, develop the plant life and the air and everything on a planet. That's what terraforming is, to make it suitable for life to thrive.
I think that's very interesting. I think there are, when I look at the questions, they run the gamut. So I'm trying to get them collated so we can ask you a single question or a combination of questions. So somebody has asking about DNA regeneration exercises. Would that be much more beneficial if you used a crystal, if you held a crystal during those exercises?
I like to, yes, because it helps channel the frill into, you don't have to have that, but it's an augmentation, just like all these things that Jenhan has shared. We can all do this with our consciousness. We don't need crystals, but the crystal is like a tool that can augment our consciousness in doing things. So yes, it can augment the I like to use a crystal that I hold and point it into my heart vortex, and then pulse breath while visualizing the frill entering into my heart vortex that's feeding this upward toroidal flow going from the base of my spine up through the top of my head. And this is like their ET yoga.
That's an interesting concept. So have you done, or do you plan to do, experiments within the Great Pyramid? Is it actually a power plant, and could using a Vogel crystal potentially be the heart of the system? Just wanted to know more about that because you brought up the pyramids.
Well, the pyramids on the planet Era, they use a large crystal in the pyramid, and the pyramid acts as a transponder to harvest the frill energy because of the shape. When you look at the mathematics of like the Great Pyramid, you have the golden mean geometries, and the golden mean geometry indicates that it goes into infinity, the golden mean ratio. It's like this infinite mathematics, and so it transponds this etheric energy and that the crystal harvests, and then they have ways of collecting it at the top of the pyramid that sends the energy wirelessly. They don't use electromagnetic things like we do. Everything's like quantum communications. They don't use radio waves and things like that. And so the pyramid in Egypt is a whole nother animal. And I have my own thoughts about that, but I can't speak with authority.
Okay. So how about with a Vogel crystal that has rainbows, natural formations inside of it? How does it affect the vortex energy and healing when using the crystals?
If it has rainbows, you said?
Yes, rainbows and natural formations inside the crystal.
Oh, well, they have their, it's as Una says, make friends with the crystal, because the crystal is so elaborate that it actually embeds consciousness. It actually is a conscious being. And to make friends with it, become one with the crystal. And if you're using, this type of technology, it's okay to have those inclusions and rainbows and things in it, but you don't want to have it in the vortex forming eye of the area of the crystal. So the crystal doesn't have to be perfectly clear to be useful. Some crystals have like their own unique personality that has their own special attributes to it, and some are pretty.
So someone asks, how do you measure the strength of the frill? Is it like a voltmeter?
Oh, there we go. Boy, that's a $64 million question. That's, in fact, I was just sending out communications to Jenhan, who was working with two engineers from Earth, Terran engineers that are colleagues working on the terraforming operations on Mars, to try to see if I can pick their brains on. We have, as of yet, not developed a method of quantifying and measuring the frill. So what I'm doing is this week if you can see this, is a form which I'm going to wind the copper and silver wires and power it with a higher power unit that I'm going to be doing a plant experiment, because plants react enormously when exposed to the frill. They'll grow like crazy. So I'm going to do a controlled experiment with two plants in the same condition, and one's going to be exposed to the frill generator and the other one won't be. And so we'll be able to see, since we don't have a method as of yet to measure the frill, I can see the reaction of the frill in a plant.
Interesting. So someone wants to clear their land. They've moved into a new place and they want to clear the home and the land, and they want to know what the most effective way to do this. Do they have to use different sized crystals for different areas, or can they just stand at the edge of the property and bury a crystal, or is there some other way that's most effective?
Well, consciousness is most effective when there's several different ways. There's no like set in stone one particular way. You could the crystals will embed consciousness, and you put an intention into the crystal, and the most effective way is pulsing your breath with the intention. Project it while you hold the crystal, and you can put them around your property, or you can just visualize your whole property and put it into the crystal, and what your intention is. We affect reality more than we know.
That's very true. So a question that is a little off the track here about electroculture. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You want to know, does electroculture harvest frill?
Yes, in fact, I had a little discussion with Jen Han regarding, because my wife and I have a greenhouse, and I'm wanting to augment the the plant growth. And so we were discussing, I'm still figuring out ways how to implement the silver with the copper and make the most effective antenna. But he revealed that copper attracts frill. So a lot of people, use the coils and the different things. And Jen Han recommended, using golden mean ratios, Fibonacci, fractal type of antennas, and all the things that a lot of people do experiment with that. But it's interesting that frill is attracted by the copper, and the frill then goes into the plant. So yeah, that's a big interest of mine is electroculture, because we definitely need that with everything that's going on the planet with our food supply and more people. You know, I live off the grid in the mountains and fairly self-sufficient. And so, you know, to be able to grow food without, you know, to be able to grow robust food without pesticides and fertilizers is is a really good idea.
Absolutely. I'm all about electroculture. So hey, this goes back to the discussion about DNA regeneration. They want to know, would you recommend doing a DNA regeneration exercise as a group rather than individual, like an online group meditation type thing?
It's more of, I would say it's more of an individual thing, you know, because you're working with your own DNA, not the group DNA. So I would say it's more of an individual thing.
So how do you think we can use this technology to harmonize the hearts of humanity? Is this something we can project this harmonizing frequency into the atmosphere?
Yes, well, as you are all aware, that the planetary matrix that we're in is a morphogenic field, and that all living beings are interconnected. All of our minds are like a fractal of like a larger conscious mind that makes up the planet. Our bodies are made up of the planet. And that since it is holographic, and whenever you change any aspect of the hologram, you affect the entire hologram. So as it's been measured, you know, that the square root of 1% can affect of the entire population, which is less than 9,000 people for 8 billion people, can start the kindling effect of affecting a change. So yeah, what I like to do, one of the things I did with Elena is like we did this show called affecting the planetary timeline in a positive way with a crystal. And so we had interestingly, we had what, about 1,700 people happened to be live, and everybody brought their crystal and whatever and you know, I did a visualization of seeing, you know, all the criminals of humanity being brought to justice, and the technologies being released, and you know, everything, the earth being healed. You know, there's this beautiful visualization, right, to get into everybody's mind and imagine this transformationist world. And then when everybody was ready, they took and pulsed their breath like that. And at that precise moment, a spike on the Schumann resonance happened. And I asked Jenhan about that, and he says, "Yeah, you did it that day. That all the minds on this planet are in interresonance with the ionospheric shell, and so and and I know this from the work I did in the 1980s with Dr. Robert Beck, who was measuring people with gifts that were tuned into this Schumann resonance, and how the left and right hemispheres would go into sync with each other. And then how how the Russians were using it for warfare, you know, that hitting certain frequencies that cause the left and right hemispheres. And I did a lot of research with this. I worked with the government for a long time with electronic stuff, and validated that for myself. Actually, he was a Navy captain. We were working on satellite equipment, and I had accidentally had the oscillator turned on the frequency that caused the left and right hemispheres to desynchronize. And he was doing something he could do in his sleep all the time, you know, like we're wrapping these things, ship them out, and he threw his hands down. What the hell is going on here? You know, he couldn't function, you know. And I just, oh my God, it was a perfect double-blind experiment. I accidentally left it on the frequency that caused the left and right hemispheres to desynchronize. I won't say what that frequency is, but it it definitely works. And anyway, that's a long story and another subject.
Well, there's some questions about the pineal gland. I'm going to try to combine them so you can just answer one question.
Oh, great. Oh, by the way, you can take the 4096 hertz, according to Una, who is the Altian. You can put that frequency up, probably use your cell phone too, you know, as long as you turn off all the radiation. It will, now you people can hear this. I can't hear above 1300 hertz, but it will help clear the crystals in your pineal gland, which is kind of interesting. We learned that.
Well, you answered one half of the question already. So they want to know about decalcifying the pineal gland. So that was perfect. So, but the other part of the question is the pineal gland opening a portal to source
Yes.
or to a connection?
Yes, it opens a portal to source. When the pineal is open, you're connected with source.
Excellent. So the next question is about projecting. Can we use crystal technology to project Gen Z, the next generation, into a future timeline so they can start the rebuilding process?
I missed the first part of that. Can you use
Can we
the
use
once again?
crystal technology
Uh-huh.
to help project Generation Z
Oh,
into
Generation Z.
into a future timeline so they can start the rebuilding process?
Well, there's universal laws, and there's the law of non-interference. You don't, and the same with healing, is like, unless you have the person's consent, you're violating universal law, and source, I guess you can just call it, will make it right, you know, because you don't do that. You don't but you can visualize the kind of world you want to see in your heart, that you want to see manifested in the world, and to see how you would like to see the people in the situation. That does not violate
Okay. So you had said before that tuning forks were not accurate enough to get to the 4096 frequency. Would using
right.
a Rife machine generator be able to do that?
Oh, what kind of generator?
Rife, R-I-F-E.
Oh yeah, I have a spooky generator X Pro. I'm actually treating myself right now. Um uh eh, there's a way, but it's so complicated. Yeah, you can program in a frequency, and it's not worth it. You know, it's just too complicated.
Gotcha. So the technology that was removed from the pyramids, do you know what it consisted of? And have you heard, would it be returned and used in a benevolent manner?
Oh, what technology of what pyramid?
Technology that was removed from the pyramids.
What, the Great Pyramid in Egypt?
Yes.
I'm not aware of what was removed.
Okay. All right.
I have associates that are doing ground penetrating radar and have found amazing structures inside the pyramid. Just mind-boggling. And you know, there's elements that you know, connected with secret societies and things, that wanting to grab some of this, you know, get in there first and grab the goodies, like they always do. But I don't have a lot of information on that.
I get you. So someone asked, is there any benefit to measuring a person's frequency? Or is it all about healing and returning the human to a specific resonant frequency? Or is it all about consciousness and intent?
Well, it is all about consciousness. But one more time on that question. I'm not sure I understood correctly.
Well, they want to know if there is a benefit to measuring a person's frequency, Or is it better just to use the frequency for healing purposes? Or as a total question, is it just all about consciousness and intent?
Okay, not sure what you're referring to as the frequency. Um, it as far as, healing with the crystals, it's a matter of understanding how we project holographic images with our minds, and how we can interface. This is just kind of advanced stuff for some people. A lot of people, with regular stuff with crystals. This is being able to open up a singularity portal inside of a crystal that allows you to imprint into what they term the void, which is outside of time and space, to bring it into manifestation. And the good thing about this, there's safeguards with this stuff. Whereas if you have like a dissonant thought, you want to hurt somebody, or have something bad you want to do with this technology, it's not effective, because the resonance structure of the geometry of the lattice structure, dissonant thoughts dissipate because they cannot attune to the resonance of this lattice structure. And so it's kind of has a built-in, it's kind of wonderful. It's got like a built-in safeguard, so that when you have a loving intention, it's like it transcends, and the densities become most effective.
Well, Dan, as we round out our time here, I just want to give you the opportunity to say whatever final words you have to us. This has been such amazing information. People are deeply interested in, and we're going to post all your links and information in with the recording. But I'd like to give you the opportunity to, however you want to close, and final thoughts.
Oh, well, we can do a few minutes more if you want. It's up to you. I just love these questions. It's like great. I love when people ask questions.
Sure. I have a question that just came in. Is it possible to use crystal technology to align the collective with the objective truth, such as all is one?
Is it possible to
Use crystal technology to align the collective? I'm certain that it's kind of collective, meaning collective.
Right.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
With the objective of truth.
Well, each of us, when you say truth, each of us, within our heart, we have the resonance of truth. When we hear truth, it resonates, right? And so it's like everybody has their own truth, you could say. And so when you project into the crystal and put with the intention to affect you can't not help but affect the collective mind that we're all connected to. And so in that sense, yes, but truth is a difficult one to define.
Yeah. So here's one that maybe you have an opportunity to tell a story about. Someone's asking, are you still in contact with the Emether being encounter during your Kundalini experience? Can you tell us more about this being?
Oh, yeah. No, that was it. 1977. I had like it's though they wanted to raise my level up in order to have this interaction with this being. And I felt like millions of volts going through my hands and my feet. And I could clearly, with my eyes closed, I could see this being with a large cranium and incredible love coming through its eyes. And, as the sphere was projected, keep in mind, I didn't even know what platonic solids were or nested geometries. This is all like totally new to me. And it left a burning passion in me to try to understand what this experience was all about. And as I grabbed every book I could in 1977 to try to understand, I was looking at, oh my God, that's it. It's like, one connecting, the dodecahedron into the icosahedron into, all the different nested geometries. And then you start seeing all these different correlations. And, over the decades, I find that there was a lot of scientific corroboration of what the being shared with me. And that's and now I find that the emether actually initiated that interaction with me to prepare me to be able to share this information with all of you.
We're so pleased that you have that. Just love it. So someone asked, is our cranial sacral fluid like liquid crystal that can be used or programmed like a quartz crystal?
Not to be programmed like a quartz crystal. A quartz crystal has a unique geometry that aligns with the entire fundamental structure of the matrix that we're in. And so, no.
Okay. So can crystals accidentally bring in bad entities, and what crystals should we stay away from?
Well, it's important to clear the crystal. Interesting experience. Elena was wearing a crystal Merkaba, like a double, a star tetrahedron type quartz crystal, and she was psychically attacked, and the crystal turned dark in color. And I told her to take her signal generator, program it to the 4096 frequency. I sent her a magnetic coil and to put each of the points in for like 10 seconds into the magnetic field. And she just happened to have the foresight to take a photograph of the crystal that was darkened. And I've seen this before with other things. Crystals have turned dark or break, or different things have happened depending on the energies involved. And in fact, you can see that in our crystal classes that we've done on marcelvogel.org. There's a link and you can see the crystal before and after, and the crystal became clear and bright and luminescent afterward. So you can clear out a crystal of any dark energies.
Well, this has been so enlightening, Dan. I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to answer all these questions. I do want to give you the opportunity to say any final words. We have reached our time limit, and want to give you the opportunity to give us your final words.
Oh, just do what all of you are doing. You're all connected consciousness. You're researching consciousness. Consciousness is so important. And crystals are a tool of consciousness. And we're going into an interesting era. And we're going to be connecting with other beings from other civilizations, probably not too far off, that have amazing technologies, and that know that the universe tends to perfection, and that love is how we evolve from one density level to the next, and that these sciences are from my off-world contact are based on these principles. And it's been an honor to share this information with all of you. Hopefully it it spiked in certain how do you say, is like it resonated in certain aspects.
Well, it definitely resonated with our community here, and I'll be happy to send you all the comments. There are wonderful comments thanking you for such wonderful information. It's just powerful things that
Yeah.
people need and want to hear about. And so I thank you so much for your time and all this fabulous information. I thank everybody for joining us and hope you'll come back for the next Worldwide Voices.
Oh, I look forward to it. Yeah, marcelvogel.org has all the details on everything, and research and expand your horizons.